and gentlemen, welcome back to the very last of the daily Ketchup GE2025 live streams. We are extremely thankful that you've been joining us.
Yeah, also very, very happy that we are finally here.
Yeah, really,
last stream.
really. If you guys are wondering why we do 6 streams out of, instead of 9, it's because we didn't want to work on weekends and public holiday. I think fair enough lah. We got crew also. But anyway, if you're joining us for the first time, basically we have videos on demand. You can watch all the previous live streams. We've spoken to independent candidates. We also had candidates from NSP, SDA, PAR, RDU, SDP, and Workers' Party last night. And tonight, we have with us our highly requested guest returning from day one. This really, we saw the comments. Everyone said, hey, not enough time. So we have Minister Ong Ye Kung returning, and also the first minister to ever join us on the Daily Catch-Up. Minister Chun Sing. He's joining us later tonight. Right? We all forgot, right? I just dug that up. As you may already know, to keep things fresh, we also have been rotating guest hosts from the very best of the podcasting world. And of course, you know him from more than just his podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, Singapore's, I dare say, Singapore's biggest content creator.
Let's go.
Hey, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Have you been keeping up with GE2025?
A little bit.
So what do you think? What do you think so far?
I think it's been very exciting. I think this is one of the most exciting ones that I've ever seen. I'm not sure whether it's because of my age, because like I'm maybe finally at that age.
We got shit to lose now, right?
At the age to care.
You know.
Have there been any particular moments or drama that like speak out to you, or all of it is exciting?
I think all of it is very exciting.
Fair enough.
I feel like I say that every election though. Every election I feel like, wow, this year different from last time.
Was
this time,
it
like, very intense.
last time was COVID, right?
Yeah.
It was quite a bit boring,
bro.
I feel like that one didn't have the rally.
I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it as much as I do this time.
I think so. Like the best and worst soundbites come from the rallies. So like we've had the zingers, but we also obviously had the weird like sexuality reveals also from the rallies. So I think we definitely need more rallies coming up. Before we dive into it, also just a quick word for housekeeping and admin. So we can see your comments like we mentioned before. It'll be really helpful if you can direct the comments, so just indicate who's it for. And also just a reminder to remain civil and respectful. Speaking of which, so I wasn't on yesterday's stream, and it meant that I could take a look at chat and comments, and I saw a particular theme of comments. It wasn't a lot, but it was a theme of comments, and I thought I wanted to address it because I felt like it was slightly misdirected. So some people were saying that Alison in particular, maybe they found her a little bit distracting with some of the questions. And I wanted to say it's really not on her. It's something that John and I, and even John Paul, I'm going to throw him under the bus. We sometimes decide on what the makeup looks like, right, for the cast. And I think Alison brings something to the table where it's a little bit fresh, a little bit funny, and sometimes we need to cut through that seriousness. So just to lift the lid a little bit.
The three of us too old to do what she does.
Really, truly. Just to lift the lid a bit, like I think there are 2 main groups of our audience base. I think one likes our banterish, playful side. The other prefers us to take advantage of our access to be a bit more serious. And I think sometimes we get that balance a little bit off. So if the viewing experience was a little bit suboptimal for you yesterday, that's on us, not on her. Just felt like I wanted to put it out there. And I also welcome John to join me in a Goming Sing bow.
Please apologize. Yep, thank you very much.
Speaking of the topic of viewing experience, John, some people in chat yesterday asked, will you be asking hard questions to PAP today or not?
I want to explain. I tell you, the moment I ended last night's stream, if y'all were here, I had friends and Instagram texting me. It's like, oh my god, you all really almost like want to make me feel very adversarial. Yeah, they were like, wow, you really give them. Then I'm like, really never. I want to say, the questions are, as with every episode, we share that question because this is a live show. We do want them to prepare and not come here and don't have the research and the ERR, right?
Of course.
So everybody got a chance to prepare, and I think we moderated the question properly. It's not me lah.
If it's any assurance, like the candidates we had yesterday have also reshared links to the full video, so I don't think they found it.
There are many factors that might define how you vote. Let it not be a podcast.
Yeah lah. I mean, it could be one-off lah, but hopefully not.
The chicken farmer is there.
Also, before that, as this is the last and final stream we'll be doing for GE2025, I thought we'd look at some questions from our Telegram community.
Shall we make the assurance our promise of this episode first?
Yes, okay. Right, because some of you felt that, we may go easy on the PAP candidates that we have today. In fact, PAP ministers, we're going to show you that we're going to ask difficult questions. In the title, we cannot lie.
How difficult?
Difficult in
but
our
then again, it's subjective.
Okay, if it's
how
not
hard are you going to go?
You can mention and then maybe contribute some of your hard questions. That would if time permits.
I think at the end of the day, we don't want to confuse asking real difficult questions with being disrespectful. That's not what we're about.
Yes.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, I think this is the first time as I send a question across to the representatives of the party to like, hey, if they want to prepare, this is the questions. This is the first one that I was a little bit I was a bit worried. They will say, then I don't want to come already. Yeah. So that was the.
Then you just end up with me.
Then just
So speaking of which, I mentioned that I just wanted to like spend some time, maybe like 2-3 minutes, just looking at some questions from both chat as well as the community. We have Seb, who actually very, very sweet. He starts off by saying, how are you guys holding up mentally and physically? Also, then a serious question: have you all decided who to vote for, and was there a swing based on the interviews? For the two in the middle, especially.
While the seat's warm.
They stretch ready from this question.
Okay, first part. You guys doing well mentally, physically?
I think it's been quite a long period of like preparing for this. It's not just 6 days, right, or live stream. We prepared like quite a few days. So I think while there is some tiredness, it's very, very fulfilling to see the live stream take off, to see different people appear on stream.
Are you running for election or what?
Sorry, I need some context. Why would they be tired?
So we've been live streaming for 6 days, even though they have been mostly seat warmers.
Because this not my job lah. This not my job lah. I have a real job.
No, but also the election period, like here, right, is quite a short runway. So we have campaigning very intensive, very short period. And then can you compare it to like for instance the US one? It's like months and months. There's media constantly on it.
I think what we know also. It's our first time doing a live show like this, and then we are producing every day because every day got new things happening. So the script is written
for the past.
So
2 weeks.
Out of the 9 days, we've been doing 6 days
of
live stream.
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. Yeah. So the script is written on its day itself. Then can you imagine every day we got different guest hosts such as yourself, which is like impossible to book because you MIA on me last week.
I did it.
Right. And then we have
do it.
And then political candidates also very impossible to book because we need to work around their rally, and then it's impossible for them to give us something firm because the rally venue they need to ballot. Yeah, so it's a bit challenging because sometimes if they successfully get the venue, then maybe go your rally and don't come here lah. You know what I mean? So today very honoured because Min Ong is actually at a rally now. Then he's gonna rush over after this.
Whoa. Yeah. No, but like so I felt tired and I was like, wow, I can't believe like finally our last day, right? Can you imagine how it feels like to be one of the candidates? To go through the full 9 days like campaigning or so. So I think it's definitely not as tiring as what they're doing.
Let's ask them.
Yeah. There was also a community member named V, and it was such a funny interaction between him and John earlier today. So he initially gave some valuable feedback, and then after that, right, said like, hey, TDK cast, can you all brainstorm some policy solutions, like very, very specific ones, to which John then replied, hey bro, we're not running for elections. So then he straight away 180, right? He said, oh, paise, can you all tell me your favorite food, best HDB layout, and best way to spend your TDC?
I think he was dissing us, then now he's giving a shout out.
No, I think he's legit trying to get a shout out. So I'm going to press here. Anybody got good ideas on how to spend CDC vouchers?
Oh, I was going to say I go out there for policy lah, lama.
Oh, no, we don't care about that anymore.
I'll start. I just found out that there are 2 Pokemon card shops that accept CDC vouchers. I don't know if that's the way government wanted us to spend our CDC vouchers, but
probably not.
No,
tomorrow.
No, exactly.
We're putting it back into the local economy.
It
That's
might be the
purpose.
only way you can invest your CDC vouchers.
Yeah.
Idea.
That's an investment vehicle.
Okay. This is really bad, but actually don't follow any of it.
We're not financial.
But yeah, it was quite nice because I think at the end of last year, a lot of people were sharing like unconventional places. So there's like game shops, you can buy like Nintendo Switch games, for example. This is, of course, coming from privilege. A lot of people need it for like basic needs. But this is if you have extra and you're running out of time to use it, there are other ways.
Can also donate.
You can donate.
There's an
And that
expiry.
probably is the better way to do it.
There's an
I'm looking at
expiry
the comment. I'm looking at the chat, and I want to tell you all straight up, I'm not asking MBTI today, okay?
Okay. Definitely that question is out. Okay. I also just want to say that we also sometimes don't want to ask, but then chat will start going on about, hey, ask about MBTI, So
Chat behave. Chat.
I'm very curious in that. I think even though JianHao, you're joining us for the first time today, you have had the opportunity, like the rest of us, to meet many of the candidates in person.
Oh yes.
Do you feel like knowing them in person changes the way you vote?
100%. Yeah.
Right.
I feel like even if I feel maybe a stronger connection. Like I feel like, okay, I've seen this person at work. I feel like I can have a certain trust towards.
But now then
how it goes about.
You need to go out of your way to make sure you meet their opposing candidate, right? So you can meet both and then have.
Why?
Because then you know you're not judged by the first person you met, ma. You're not judging by the person.
Like sometimes maybe you find your wife and then like you.
Right. You don't even date every other girl, is what you're saying.
Maybe it's love at first sight.
Yeah. I see.
So that's fair. So you're clearing like, okay, this guy, he's a good standing man. Okay lah, it's fine.
Like, I mean, imagine if you live in Tampines, then you have to meet 4 times.
Yeah, or one lah.
20 people
It's
to decide.
girls, imagine you have to introduce like 4 to your father and mother.
Yeah. No, that's true. Before we bring on our guests, I do want to ask some questions to our seat warmers before they leave, because they really barely get a chance to speak. Have the interviews that we've done in the last 6 days like influenced, helped shape your vote in any way?
JP.
I feel like I really don't care about politics for the most part, right? And like the previous election, right, I really just went up to a booth, then I just like kind of like just tikam and went with it.
Answering NCQ
But then right, when like now that we have done all this, right, I feel like I'm very tired to answer his question from earlier because I had to do a lot of homework and try to understand what's going on so that we can pull all of this off. And like I feel like now there's a lot more, like it's much more of an informed decision that I can be making, which I think is very important as well. And I understand the weight and the importance of why we need to be informed also. Yeah, I think that was the biggest difference for me.
Were you surprised by any of the interviewees that we had?
I think similar to what he said, right? Like when you get to know them on a personal level already, right? Then it's a bit harder.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit harder because a lot of the times you see that maybe they are nervous or they cannot articulate themselves very well on like in front of cameras and all that, but they actually care, right? They really actually care and want to make better change for Singapore and all that kind of thing. Yeah, I think that really reigned true lah.
Alistair, how about you? Like after the last 6 days, are you closer to making a more informed decision or more confused?
I would say there's more things to consider, and I said it yesterday and I'll say it again, but having the privilege to see the candidates here is something that I changed my mind on some of the candidates because honestly I thought the media painted them as crazy people, like fools or like just people who don't have their heads on them. Yeah. Right?
So you're BFF with Lim Tian, I feel like that's what you're saying.
Close.
But you said really close to him that day.
Yeah. And I was surprised. I was surprised that the stuff that he was saying was not completely just, he plucked from the air, that kind of, I mean like he can speak and the media has done a lot to try and tarnish the image, which although I would say this GE, the media is a lot better in, pushing out reels that they have the zingers of all the parties. Yeah. They have memes from all the parties, and I feel it's a bit fairer compared to what 10-20 years ago. My impression from the politicians of 10-20 years ago, right, were like, these are just crazy people. I'm not even going to give them a second thought. But sitting here having the privilege gives me a bit more to think about, I think. Yeah,
I think you brought up a good point because like if you look at mainstream media, I think there's always a perception that maybe it's slightly leaning one way, but actually you get all the clips across. I don't know if you notice this also in like just looking at all the reels.
I do.
Yeah. So
for this GE, I would say a bit fairer than past.
I wasn't here for the day where Mr. Lim Tian was here, but I was very impressed with the other person, Mr. Desmond Lim, who I thought had received quite a bad rap. I think a lot of people had painted him as some sort of very ineloquent, like just not a well-spoken gentleman. Honestly, the things he said, I was quite touched. Like I was like, this guy is like genuinely quite caring, and he's backed it up with years of like charitable work. So that was somebody I definitely changed my mind on.
Same.
You don't know who is Desmond?
I do.
Oh, you do?
But I thought that something that was very genuine was that there were a lot of people in chat that was actually coming out in support. Like I knew Desmond from 10 years ago. I worked with him, and people just came out in support in droves. So I think that's really a sign of like a really, really good man.
So I am getting word that Minister Chun is on his way. He's arriving already. But before that, I do want to say, I think what we try to do, despite having our own political leanings and our bias that we are always trying to overcome and find out more, is that what we try to do is we try and feel people with different biases. We also try and feel people from different podcasts, and that's the role that you play for us today, JianHao.
Thank you. I am.
And with that, right, what we are trying to do is we want to make sure that in the questions that y'all will ask, and we will try and ask for you, keep your questions as asking a candidate, a political candidate. I mean, if you have questions for particular ministries that they are ministers of, sure, we'll try and fit it in. But the questions we're looking for is to really compare them to all the different political candidates here. Not as the people in charge for the last 60 years, but for the people that's trying to win your trust today. But also,
5 years.
feel free to ask questions about government choices that have confused you, then we will try and ask that as well. Okay.
Absolutely. All right. I think it's time.
It is time.
Thank you so much, John Paul, for warming the seat.
I hope the seat is warm enough, sir.
It's time to bring in our first guest for tonight. Thank you, John Paul, again. Of course.
Very potong steam.
Our name tag transition.
Okay.
I actually love it a lot. Our next guest is a familiar face in Singapore's politics, contesting once again in Tanjong Pagar GRC.
Hey.
Minister Chun saying, welcome back to the show,
Welcome back.
sir.
Thank you, everyone.
How has campaigning been like for you so far?
It's been fine.
Yeah.
It's been fine.
Not very fun, is what I'm saying. Tired.
We were just talking about how tired it is for us to live stream, but you have to actually go out there and campaign for 9 days.
Actually, I think if I'm really, really tired now, then something is very wrong. Okay, I must tell you this. In 2011, I was the only guy in Tanjong Pagar GRC that got walked over, right?
Right.
And everybody laughed at us and said that, you have no mandate. And because of that, we made ourselves a promise that we'll work our guts out to make sure that next time, by the time the election, the 9-10 days, we would have done the bulk of our work and we shouldn't be trying to prove ourselves in 5 or 10 days kind of things. Because if you have been serving, then surely you must have done a lot of hard work, right? And the people can see, right, whether you have done it or not, right? So if you suddenly come out and say, these 9 days, I am very, very tired, then something doesn't sound right.
We prepare a bunch of not difficult like a bit difficult questions okay.
It's in the title of the video.
and before we go there, I want to know your thoughts on how this election has been a little bit different for you as compared to previous ones.
Well, this election, I think every election, to be fair, is different. There's no two elections that's exactly the same because the times are different, the issues are different. The last election, we had COVID. So we were fighting COVID and going into an election. Before that, in 2015, we had SG50. And then we also had the recent passing of our founding Prime Minister, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. So it's a bit different in everyone. Now in this election, we are faced with the tariff wars, and actually there are many issues behind the tariff wars. Because I always say that, if you are just worried about the tariffs, then perhaps that's the smallest thing in the larger scheme of things. Because if it's let me explain this. Because now everybody got slapped with tariffs, right? So you got 10%, you got 20%, you got 30%, and so on and so forth. Now, if it's just the tariff itself, then life is relatively straightforward, right? Then we all like businessmen, we just do the calculations and then we reorganize our supply chain. Then voila, maybe we're done, right?
Right.
But actually, I think what people are afraid is not the tariffs per se, it's the issues that are behind the tariffs.
Right.
And the first thing I think is the uncertainty. Because today you get 10%, right? Then you got 20%, right? But that doesn't mean it's fixed forever, right? If tomorrow you get 30% and 40%, right?
Like country to country.
Like country to country, right? And then you don't know who is going to retaliate against who, right? So I think everybody is living in a bit of a suspense, right? And when people are living in a bit of suspense, they hold back their investments and then we can't create jobs, right? We can't create better jobs. I think that's what people are most afraid of. Right. So I mean, we're talking to many Singaporeans, they don't just talk about the tariffs, but they talk about what's behind the tariffs.
Right.
Then the other thing I think people are kind of worried about is that, okay, so where is this all going to lead us to, right? If people keep fighting one another, keep increasing the tariffs. I think what people are very afraid is that over time, if the investments come down and then the number of jobs comes down, our wages come down, then what are we going to do, right?
Yep.
Because for the last 60 years, we have depended on our survival, on trade, and everybody knows, right? Trade is 3 times our GDP. So if the global trade comes down, then surely it's going to affect our livelihoods, right? Then people want to know, okay, so which party, which candidate, you're going to come up with some plans, some ideas that can help us overcome this, right? Or which person has some ideas on what the new opportunities perhaps that Singapore can ride on. I think these are the core issues in this particular GE, right? I think these are the real issues. I mean, the rest of the other issues, whether people snipe at one another, those kind of things, it happens in every GE, right? Those are what I call the red herrings, right? But really, what are the core issues, right?
Okay, so speaking of livelihoods, and we talked about like the tariffs as well, I think something that's related is something that opposition parties have brought up, right? Which is the GST increase and the timing of it, because they felt that why did it happen when global inflation was on the rise, right? 2023, 2024, and then there was this dual force of like internal and external pressures on prices. Some parties have also argued that the GST increase could have been delayed, or maybe there were other alternative forms that could have been used. So my question is, why did the PAP government choose GST instead of alternatives, and why could it not have been delayed?
Okay, simple answer is this. A couple of years back, we already know. Nobody is arguing about this. Our population is aging. Our healthcare cost is going to go up. Our infrastructure needs increasing. We also need to refresh our infrastructure from flats to MRT lines and so on and so forth. So the needs are going to increase. So it's like bring up a family, right? We know that our expenses are going to go up. So what do? We say that, okay, so we need to save a bit more, we need to go and raise more revenue, and we increase the GST. Then you might ask, why not increase any other things? Because usually the 4 big buckets of money that we can get, one is the returns from our reserves.
No, I see.
Yeah, the returns from our reserves. Second one is corporate income tax. Then the third one is maybe personal income tax. Then of course there's GST. Then if you look at these 4, actually it's quite interesting. Okay, so money from reserves. We ask ourselves, so in the years going forward, are we likely to get higher returns or lower returns? So just now, based on what we say, chances are that we're going to get lower returns because of the uncertainties, right? So that doesn't look very safe. But having said that,
or M2 money supply go up,
economics, M2 money supply go up.
We got 2 homework.
He was called a researcher yesterday. So
ChatGPT, right? Okay, but having said that, no, this is a serious issue because now for every $5 we spend, $1 come from actually the interest that our forefathers saved up and allow us to have. But if the interest is going to come down, then we will be short of money, right? Then what about corporate tax? Actually, corporate tax, a lot of people say that, oh, why don't you increase or lower the corporate tax? I just want to be very frank. You know how easy or how difficult it is to set corporate tax? You make a guess. Who determines our corporate tax? Actually, a lot of people think that we determine our corporate tax and income tax, right? But actually, can I just say that it's determined by other people? Because for us to be competitive, what is the correct corporate tax? It's called 0.1% lower than your competitor. Right? Yeah. Lower than your competitor. So actually, you don't have many degrees of freedom, right? Then the GST is like, okay, so we need to raise more revenue. But we all know, right? If you raise GST, if you just do the economics 101, right? Then it says a regressive tax, right?
Yep.
But the way we do GST is quite different from the way other people do GST, because we collected the GST, then we have permanent structural schemes to help the poorer people. So if you like, it is like taking more from the rich and giving it more to the poor. And the other thing is that when we collect GST, the foreigners pay, they don't get any rebates. They don't get any CDC vouchers and all that kind of things. So you can see this is how we structure it. Now, having said that, then you are right. Hey, then why you raise GST at this point in time, right? Because last year you got the surplus, right?
Before we answer why do you raise GST, right? I think if I look at and I don't mean to bring this up like that, but Workers' Party manifesto, they also brought alternative income. For example, wealth tax.
Okay.
The other one about tobacco and what they call that?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, yeah.
Okay. So let's look at that. The sin tax. They call it the sin tax. Okay. Let's look at them. No matter what you do with the sin taxes, they are not in the same magnitude as what we need for the healthcare and the infrastructure. It's like some people say, if you cut the minister pay, you'll fund everything, man.
Right.
So it's the order of magnitude is just
you bring this up yourself,
Actually, there's quite a good TikTok video now going on around and showing the math, of how much do we actually need for our healthcare, how much do we actually need for our transport and things like that, and how much do you actually pay the entire, never mind the ministers, the civil service. Right, it's 1 order, 2 orders of magnitude different. Right. Okay, coming back to that. Then you talk about the wealth tax, right? Actually, every country throughout history also tried to do that, right? Then the question is that why don't people do it more often? And the answer is actually it's not so simple, because what do rich people do?
They park their money elsewhere.
Once you increase the taxes somewhere, they will park their money elsewhere. They didn't become rich by not knowing how to manage their money, right? Correct. So someone say this, and this is, by the way, it's an economist joke, since today.
I probably won't know that.
But it says collecting taxes is like plucking feathers from a goose, You try to pluck without the bird screaming, you know, and running away, you know. And this is really true because once you increase any taxes anywhere, everybody make adjustments, right? Even for us average people, we also make adjustments, right? So I think there's a limit to what you can do. But having said that, we are trying, and then that's why the property tax went up a bit here and there, because we are trying to get the people with more assets to contribute a bit more. But again, that is not enough for all these kind of things.
Yeah.
Then come back to the point earlier, then the timing. Now, the situation is a bit like that, no? Okay, we all as a family, we'll work out this plan, we'll need more money, we're going to raise more revenue, we put GST. Then suddenly, tong dong, we struck lottery. Suddenly, we all got a surplus. And where did the surplus come from? Corporate income tax, because the year before, a lot of people book their profits here, we are able to collect more money. But it's like striking lottery, right? It's not permanent. Then will we say that after we got that extra money, we say, alamak, we shouldn't have saved up, right? We should have a plan to save up even. Then that sounds a bit strange, right? Because what if you didn't get the lottery?
Yeah.
Then you'll be permanently short. Because today, if you go back to where I was sharing just now, for every $5 we spend, $1 already depend on the interest from the savings. And if we are not lucky, and if this one goes down, then what happened? So now whenever we get a bit more money in the years where we are a bit more fortunate, where the economy is growing well, so we take the money, we always put it into two parts. One, to share with fellow Singaporeans. So that's where all the CDC vouchers, GS, all the various schemes are to help people come about. Then the other one is like all that we have done in every previous year where we have surplus is to make sure that we keep some for the future generation, for the younger generation. Because the younger generations are going to face more challenges than our generation probably, right? And then we want to make sure that they have a solid base to overcome those challenges. That's why every time when we have some surplus, we will make sure that we spread it out and give some help to the people at this point in time, but we must also make sure that we remember our future generation. I mean, you look at it, today we are very fortunate, no? You know, we are building, now we are enjoying Changi Airport, right? No, this very nice Changi Airport, right? Actually, our forefathers pay for it, no? They pay for our generation, no? We didn't collect taxes or sell to borrow money to build it, no? Now we are trying to build it, the T5 for the next generation. And this is perhaps our Singapore philosophy. We always try to give something better for the next generation, rather than just say that we borrow. Because where the money comes from, there are only three ways money usually comes from, right? One is you take the money from your previous generation. So, you know, people save up, you use basically your grandfather's money.
Yeah.
Or second, you use taxes, which is we pay for ourselves.
Yeah.
But the worst is called, I borrow against the future. Then I make my grandchildren pay. That's what happens in some countries, no?
Yeah.
Every $5 they spend, $1 goes to paying the debts incurred by the previous generation. Now, I think we don't want Singapore to end up like that. And if Singapore end up like that, I don't think our children will forgive us and remember us fondly. Right?
So one counterpoint perhaps, which I agree with you. Nobody can say that is wrong, in fact. But Dr. Chi, I think, right, he was the one that brought up if Singapore, we are getting less and less Singaporeans due to our TFR, total fertility rate.
Yeah.
And we are replacing that with foreigners, right? Aren't we saving for foreigners to spend? I see the flaw in that argument also. I can understand how it pulls on emotions. But how can we do a better job in communicating?
Okay. So I think if we accept that the next generation is going to face more stresses, right? Then what should we do? Then surely we want to do more to help them, right? It's just like taking care of our children, right? If we think that our children are going to face a more challenging environment, we want to do more to help them, right? So how does saving less or borrowing now and making them pay for us later going to help them?
Or not borrowing now, more of like let's spend more of what we have now and save slower.
Okay, so if we spend more now or we save less now, is the two sides of the coin, right? That means that they're going to have less, right? Okay, it's a very simple thing. After all said and done, we just ask ourselves, are we going to provide more for our children? Do we want to provide more for our children? If the answer is yes, then we try our best. It's not that always that we can, we want to and we can. It's only in those years that we have surplus that we want to and can. There will be years whereby we don't have a surplus, right? So like, for example, you look at the recent past COVID, right? We took out 40 over billion, you know. But no, the amazing thing that people may not remember is when we took out 40 over billion, the Sing dollar didn't tank. We're still relatively okay. Why is that so? Because during that time, another country owed the IMF 50 billion and they almost went bankrupt. It didn't tank because people knew that actually Singapore has debt. When we needed 40 billion, we didn't have a fire sale to sell off everything at 40 billion. Because you and I know, right? If we only have 40 billion and we need 40 billion and we need to sell our assets to get 40 billion immediately, people will take us to the cleaners. We may end up with only 20 billion.
Yeah.
Right. So I think this is the kind of prudent reserves management that we have to give the next generation the confidence that we will do our best for the next generation.
Is there an amount? Is there an amount of reserves that we will feel that, okay, then that's enough?
Okay, this is a question that we have always been asking ourselves, right? It's just like a family, right? Is that an amount that, is too much and things like that? So that's why every year we have to make an assessment. What are the current needs, right? Obviously, there are current needs. Like now, for example, inflation is pretty high, right? Because we have to buy things from other places. Then at the same time, we have to make sure that we also have to apportion some to the future. So I don't think there's a magic formula, but every year the budget is like an annual manifesto, Seriously, the budget is the budget and the NDR. You can add the two together. It's an annual manifesto, which basically says how much do we need now to help our people, and how much do we need to save up to help the future generation. And that's fair, right?
Yeah.
I agree with the sentiment, right? That we shouldn't mortgage the future to save today or to pander to today. But at the same time, I also look at it as I'm 29. Today I'm struggling to feed my family. Today I'm struggling to, when I go to the supermarket and I buy groceries, I'm looking at the price tag today.
Yes.
So I'm like, how much am I supposed to care about like that future, right? When today I don't even know whether I can survive. So to me, when I see the increase and I see the timing of the increase together with the pandemic and the aftermath of that, I feel like there should be some other form of support, which is why I resonate a lot with the people. A lot of parties have been saying about exempting essential goods.
Okay.
And to me, it seems like a viable thing, but maybe it's not, and I haven't heard arguments on it.
Okay. So actually, we have looked at the experiences of other countries. Okay, just a very simple example. Someone say that, okay, this is a real example. Example. Someone say, one particular country say, I exempt flour because it's essential. Then I don't exempt these other things. Then after a while, every other thing is flour-like.
Right.
No, that was a very...
Sure,
people went to court, they serve a pizza.
Yeah.
Then, the pizza obviously have flour.
Yeah.
Flour, right? Then also have cheese, right?
Right.
Then they all got different rates, right? Then all the ingredients have different rates, right? Then what rates do you want to charge?
Yeah.
No, it's one dish, right? So actually it's very complicated to try and do all these exemptions. And if you're not careful, everybody will declare that their item is the one that has perhaps a bit more exemption. So we run a simpler system, which is that, okay, we have a standard rate, but actually we effectively have different rates for different families, because when the lower income families get back more of the GST vouchers, essentially they mean that they pay less compared to, say, the foreigners who pay the full GST with no rebates. So the way we have done it is effectively different people, depending on their incomes, have different GST rates because of the rebates given to them. Right. But it's easier to run. But otherwise, you will end up like the other country, right? Quarreling about the pizza. And the funny thing was that even different type of cheese may have
they just add a bit of flour inside, then they call it.
I don't know.
Just so that it counts. Yeah.
Because the Chinese always have a saying, right? When you have a policy from the top, there's a counter policy from the bottom. Everybody will try and figure out the system and game the thing, and then you end up with a very messy system.
Right.
Something that I wanted to ask is an extension of the TFR rate. So I think the message is constantly that, we need to prepare and we need to save for the next generation. But based on the fertility rate, more people, or fewer, I don't know what happened to my tongue today, fewer people are having children.
Yes.
Do you feel like it's more difficult to communicate that if people don't necessarily have something at stake for the future?
Of course, it's tough. And let's be frank. Today, absolutely, we may all feel that we are better off than the last generation. But today, the expectations have also changed. Our aspirations have also changed. And today, whether people want to get married, people want to have kids, they are all very personal decisions. And you cannot go and tell people that, I must set this TFR and I must set this number of people getting married. Nobody ever go and do this kind of thing based on some statistical formula on, right? But what we want to do is to create the best environment to support our families and children. Now, having said that, can we meet the expectations of everyone? I think that's also not easy, not realistic, because different people have different expectations, right? So we try to do our best for as many as we can to uplift everybody and to give people the confidence that regardless of your background, so long as you are born a Singaporean, this will be the best place for you to fulfill your potential. Now, can we do everything for everyone? Maybe not. But should we do everything for everyone? Perhaps also not necessarily so. So that's why I think we come up with all these schemes to try and help the young families to get started, whether is it helping them to settle into a new flat, helping them with the expenses required for bring weekend with the resources we have to best support our families.
Right.
And that is an ongoing work. I don't think there will ever be a time whereby we say that, okay, this is all the policies that we are doing, we're not doing anymore because that's all you all need. I don't think so. If you look at our policies that we have done over the years to support our families, young children, and so forth, they keep evolving because the stresses and strain in every generation keep evolving. So just to give an example, right? I've used this many times, I don't know, last time we seldom get compared so often, right? I don't know about you. I mean, I get compared once a year during Chinese New Year, right? Stand in front of your relatives, right? Hey, boy.
Yeah, I definitely get that in Chinese New Year also.
Boy, which school you go to? What's your grades and things like that?
Right.
Then you feel a bit. But today, actually this generation, the stresses and strains that they have is quite different from the previous generation. Today, our children get incessantly compared, so I have this joke, about sometimes in social media, we all take turns to make each other unhappy. Because we all put the best thing on social media, right? Then somebody else is looking at it, it's like, hey, why am I not having this? Then you feel, it's not that.
Really, it's like Lambo and
It's how I found. Okay.
No, at one point in time, I was joking at that. In the newspapers, on the weekend, there's usually a section that shows a lot of nice cars, a lot of nice houses, right? So when I was in the early days, I was thinking like, is this to inspire us? Or is it to make us unhappy? Because it can be both, right? Depends on...
It's none, it's the guy trying to make a sale, I guess.
It could not even be intentional, right? But then it does cause some...
Okay, speaking of comparing, right? I mean, I have a daughter. She's 6 years old.
Well done. She's going to P1 next year.
Yes, exactly. And you are the educational minister.
So do you go and try and get her into your favorite school?
Haven't yet. That's something I have to do soon.
But every school is a good school, so don't worry.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait. I need to update that.
It's not new one already. It's for every child a good school, correct?
Yeah. For every child a good school, for every age a good learner. Okay, there's a difference in meaning, because last time people say whether this school is good or not, right? Actually, I seriously believe that it's not whether this school is good or not. The real and more important question is this school a good school for my child?
Right.
Because every
what
child
defines
is
that though?
Okay, every child is a bit different.
Near your house, mostly.
So maybe I share a story.
Okay.
I have people coming to my MPS, the Meet the People session, right? Say, then do you know the school culture? Do you know the pace of the school? And so on and so forth. Because you see, simplistically, I think there are children who survive and do and thrive in very high-paced environment.
Absolutely.
But there are also many children who perhaps enjoy a more relaxed pace of learning, a more nurturing environment. Right? And they want to try different things. So if we just chase what other people want, then we forget to ask ourselves this question. What is most suitable for our child? What do our child need?
But all the schools have the same syllabus, right?
But the culture is always a bit different.
I see. Well, okay. So opposition parties like WP and SDP have called for abolishment of PSLE. So
some sort of abolishment.
Okay, some sort of abolishment, and they argue that it places undue stress on students and perpetuates a rigid educational system.
Okay,
this comes out a lot. I'm sure you think about it.
And we have answered, and we have answered this many times in Parliament. But it's not correct for me to come to Daily Ketchup and advertise another podcast that I did, right?
No,
Can
which one?
Like
Yalaba. Yeah, they were here. They were part of this show.
Okay. So I actually explained all this in detail, and this you can go and look at. Can listen to it. I feel very bad coming to Daily Ketchup. And then
never mind.
But it's also on the parliamentary record. So I understand the point about stress and rigidity and all that kind of things. But I just want to say a couple of things to share with our viewers. So first, I think JianHao, you're a parent just like we are all parents of young children. We want our children to grow up in an optimal environment where they get stretched, but not too much. But at the same time, I think you also agree that we don't want them to end up with what we call no stress. There's no such thing as no stress, right? No stress itself also can be quite stressful, right? Yeah. So then the question is, what is the optimal environment? Okay, that's the first point. The second point I would say is that for those people who advocate all this, get rid of PSLE and things like that, then we have to go back and understand what is the reason you want to get rid of PSLE. Is it to get rid of stress? Or is it for some other reasons? And different people have different reasons, and we listen to all the reasons very carefully.
What do you think is the most valid reason?
Okay. I share a couple of reasons, then you tell me which reason you think you would choose. Okay, so someone said, get rid of PSLE, so they have no stress. So they don't have to take exams. Okay, so then they will go all the way until Sec 4 without any exams or without PSLE. Then what's the implication of that? The first thing is that, so now you may not be able to go to your now favorite or choice secondary school. Then if you can't compete at PSLE, then when do we compete? It will be P1. Right? Everybody will compete to go to the favorite school in P1 because you can go to the favorite secondary school in Sec 1.
So it's the pathways, essentially.
Yeah.
Right.
So then instead of then you have another PSLE. It's called the preschool leaving exam. I mean, I'm just joking. Okay. So you actually
do MOE, you don't credit out.
No, then you actually you push forwards the stress. Okay, so that's an example.
I agree.
Then the other way is say that, okay, why do we actually so-called have this exam and we put the people in different classes? Actually, it's for two very simple reasons, two very professional reasons. One is that we want to make sure that our children goes into an environment that they are taught properly according to their needs, okay, and not being taught to the average. If everybody is the same in the same class and you don't know what level they are, you can have one child who is in the so-called gifted program all the way to the special needs. All of them have different needs, and if you put them all in the same class, it's called teaching to the average. 50% find it too difficult, 50% find it too easy, we're 100% off. You can't really teach. And that comes to the second reason. If you ask the teachers, if you go into a class and the level are so disparate, it's almost near impossible to teach. Okay. So what did we do? So in the early years, we did streaming. People say, streaming is bad because of the stigma. It's true. If you attach a stigma to the streaming, of course it's bad. But actually streaming was, in some sense, a way to help us sort people according to their needs, according to their learning needs, so that you don't teach to the average. But we know that there's a stigma over time. You can say whatever you want, but the society has evolved whereby people attach a stigma to it. So today we have full subject-based banding. And people, very funny, and they may not fully understand this. They say we got rid of streaming. Can I just clarify? Actually, full subject-based banding is actually streaming by subjects. Right. Because now you can do different subjects at different levels according to your needs.
Right.
Why is that a better system? First, you get rid of the stigma. So if you are good at economics, it doesn't mean that you're good at everything.
Not.
Right? If I am good at math...
I'm sorry I say M2 money so much.
If I'm good at math, it doesn't mean that I'm good at everything, right?
Yeah.
So you can do economics at maybe at a higher level, and I can do math at a higher level, right? Yeah. So it caters to our learning needs, and that is more suitable.
Yeah.
But the other thing I think is very important, because last time I said that, okay, Raja, you are good, then you are good, then you think you're good at everything, right?
That happened.
The generation that you know the whole life, like,
on the other hand, if I say that you're not so gifted, then you feel that everything is not very good, right? Now, actually, the message we are trying to get our next generation to understand is this: respect each other for your diverse gifts. You can be good at math, you can be good at English, you can be good at your mother tongue, you can be good at science. Everybody can be good at different things, and we will try to allow you to learn at a pace which is most suitable for you. Right. Rather than to pretend that all of you the same, don't need to all of us will teach everything at the same level to everyone. Then you're teaching to the average. You're wasting the resources and you're stressing out my teachers. They also need some mental care.
Some opposition party has called for a smaller class size as well, which I'm sure you think about that. How feasible or not feasible is that?
Okay, so again, this is on record in Parliament during this year Committee of Supply. So why do we want a smaller class size? There must be good reasons, right? Is it because we want a better teacher to student ratio so that we can take care of their social emotional needs? If that is the case, today, most of the classes have 2 form teachers rather than 1, compared to our time. I don't know. Okay. Your time one, right?
Mine is 1 lah.
Yeah, your time one, right?
How we are the same generation?
I don't know. Because you look at me like that, I was like, maybe I'm in a different generation. No. Okay, so today it is a social emotional needs part. Then the other thing is that, what do you mean by a smaller class size? Today, there's no standard class size in MOE. We go according to the needs of the student from P1. Sometimes we have pull-out classes for those people who need a bit more help. Sometimes we use technology to really have scale the class sizes. Because if you can use technology, right, you can actually do more than 40.
Scale up learning lah.
Yeah, you scale up, right? And actually, the nice thing about technology is that today you can even gamify it to do what we call effectively have the class size of 1.
Right.
What do I mean by that? You know, when we play games, right, it's effectively a class size of 1, right? Because you are playing to your level. When you have overcome this level, you go to the next level. But when we are all learning the same thing, but we can all be learning at different pace. And that is the kind of customization we envisage going forward for our education system. What we call the effective class size of 1. Now, if you can do that with technology, then you free up the teacher's capacity to look at the social emotional development of our children, especially those with the higher needs. So we don't have a standard class size. We apply our resources accordingly, rather than to say that we just reduce class size evenly. It doesn't make sense. In fact, in one of the mothership interview, sorry again, your competitor.
No, we are friends. In fact, Martino himself was invited to be on this show, but he's also covering.
So in one of the mothership interview, actually, one of the teachers actually said, it depends also on the level. Sometimes in certain classes, you want certain dynamics, right? You want people to bounce off ideas with one another. And if you have too small a class for some of those classes, you don't really get the dynamics. So I think we have to trust our professionals, which are our teachers, to know when to apply technology and to see what class size or what kind of students needs. So I think this is where, if I may just say something, that's where I say today when the media interview me, I hope, in an election season when we have debate, we don't just generate heat but light. We try to get better answers, right? And not have slogans, right? Because the slogans doesn't help us, right?
Yeah. Right? It helps campaigning though.
Yeah.
You are not answering.
So you get to ask them, we get to share. Because, how do we build a better future for Singapore? It's not about slogans, right? It is about real substantive discussion of ideas of how we apply the resources, right?
Yeah.
And it's like the other thing that we talk about, class size. Then they say, you just employ more teachers. Then it's like, can we just pause and think about what we mean, Today, MOE employs about 2% of every cohort. So you say that, if you say double the number of teachers, okay, we can do that. Then does it affect the quality? Does it affect who we can get?
Right, because you also need to train teachers and also...
There are real issues, right? But even if you can double the number of teachers, you don't just evenly spread them out, right? It's like we say that, you spread kaya on the bread, right? Sometimes there are holes. You don't spread them evenly.
Sure. Yeah. And I think earlier you mentioned the gifted kids and all that stuff, right? And I was coming here to mind, which is the nature versus nurture stuff. And I don't know if it still is the case, but it was when I was in school, right? And what I remember it to be was that the kids who were able to get their parents to give them tuition classes, the ones who spent a lot of tuition and all that, tended to do more. I'm not saying always the case, but I saw a trend and I noticed it. And so myself, we grew up poor, so I had to, whenever we stumbled together, we did it. And I still managed to put something together. And I went to what I thought was a very good school. And there I met people and I realized actually all these people are playing on another field. Because they're all rich, their parents are sending them to hundreds of dollars of tuition. And how do we prevent this? How do we remove the structural things that keeping people away?
I went through this as well.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not saying that my experience should be the experience of everyone else. But I think historically, across the world, we always have this same challenge, which is that families with more resources will want to give the best to our children, right? It's natural. I mean, when nowadays, when we have more resources, we also want to give the best, right? So you cannot tell the better off families to say that you don't give so much. But what we can do is what I call, don't cap the top, but keep lifting the bottom. So we focus our resources, more resources on those children that needs help, rather than again trying to pretend that everybody gets treated equally. Right? Because that's not the way I think we help everybody. It's like 5 fingers, right? The 5 fingers are all of different length. And if we help everyone equally, then they're still of equal.
Sure.
I want to move on from the MOE.
Right.
Okay. So I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm told that Minister Ong is on his way here already. This question might put you a little bit on the spot. Okay. I think you spoke earlier of contestation of ideas, not into a slogan, right? And so very recently, I think just 2 days ago, the SDP has claimed that the PAP had quietly adopted several of their ideas. For example, abolishing streaming and moving towards universal healthcare. Yet you all call these same ideas unworkable. When maybe not you, I don't know who, okay, I just quoting him. You all call these ideas unworkable when SDP first proposed them. So Dr. Paul in particular said that there's a time lag of about 10-15 years between when SDP proposed something and then you all say cannot be done, then you all do it 15 years later. What are your thoughts on that?
So a couple of issues. First, I think just to use the example that you raised, right? Actually today, exactly what I say. People claim that we have gotten rid of streaming because they thought that the system, they probably don't even fully understand what we are trying to do, which is to mass customize according to the learning needs of the student, right? Whether you call it streaming or not, it's quite different from the idea that was proposed to say get rid of streaming and then we just teach everyone the same thing for 10 years, regardless of their pace and needs. So you see...
So you're saying actually that you did not get rid of streaming, you changed streaming for subject-based.
We changed the thing into something that is even sharper and catered better to the needs of our students.
Right.
So this is where, that's why this afternoon I was saying that, when I was young, I was always taught this, as leaders, we should be the first one to take responsibility and the last one to take credit. But sometimes in this hustle and bustle, I think sometimes maybe we should be a bit more circumspect and not try and claim everything. I'm not saying that the opposition have no good ideas. I'm not saying that they don't contribute anything. But I just want to say that when we look at the issues, let's look at it objectively and ask ourselves whether it is indeed the same thing. So like, for example, we have the job seeker support scheme, where today, if you go for training, we help you to go for training to upskill yourself. Someone said that, that's the same idea as unemployment insurance. But is that really true? Unemployment insurance means that so long as you're unemployed, you get a payout, Whereas ours is not just because you are unemployed, you get a payout. In fact, we are saying that you get help to get into a new job by going for training. The concept is quite different. People talk about minimum wage and then we say progressive wage model. It's also quite different. A minimum wage cuts across all sectors, right? Regardless of the productivity and whatnot. A progressive wage model comes with a skills ladder, a wage ladder that has to move in tandem so that companies can remain viable, competitive, and in turn create better jobs for our workers. So I think, I'm not trying to say who has more credit or not. I mean, it's like when I was...
I'm putting you on the spot.
No, you're not putting me on the spot. Okay. In fact, someone said, success has many parents. Failure is an orphan. But on the other hand, I think to be fair, we should also tell people that sometimes we propose ideas, right? But it didn't work. So like, for example, some parties propose, just a couple of years back, it's on official parliamentary record, that we should borrow more to spend more because the interest rates are low. If we have listened to that, today I think we're in quite a different world. Some people propose that we should slow down the building of HDB flats. And if again we have listened to that, today we will have an even more serious problem. So I think let's all of us be respectful, all of us be humble. Where we have contributed, we have contributed. Where we have not contributed, let's not try to overstretch. And I say this even to my own party members, because I think to be fair, our first responsibility is to fellow Singaporeans. It's not about trying to claim credit. It is about whether we can build a system that helps fellow Singaporeans, rather than trying to say, what good does it make to say that I claim more credit than you or you more?
On that note, has the opposition ever given a good idea to the PAP and then the PAP said, not bad?
No, I think if you look at the parliamentary records, every time when there's a parliamentary debate, people raise various points, right? It will help us to sharpen various things. And this comes from the PAP backbenchers as much as it can come from the opposition. But what I really hope to see in Parliament is that we keep moving things forward so that we are in service of Singapore and Singaporeans. But we don't want to end up in Parliament with slogans whereby I think I have this view and I find all evidence to support this view and I discount all other views. And I think Singaporeans are matured. Singaporeans are...
Does it slow down progress to have so many ideas?
It's not whether... I don't think it slows down progress, but it's I don't think we are afraid of sparring with good ideas. In fact, if there are good ideas, why not, right? It's just like if there are good people from all walks of life, we are prepared to have them, so long as their heart is to serve Singaporeans. But what slows down things, as JianHao was perhaps suggesting, is people just keep going over and over the same thing and not moving the debate forward. Because I think that this is so, and I reject any evidence. No, even for the PAP, even for us in making policies, we always ask ourselves this thing. Do not just find evidence to support our own beliefs. Always, is what they say, don't drink your own Kool-Aid. But on the other hand, always try and look for evidence that might challenge our own perspective and we might get it wrong. So it's like, for example, now, in the tariff war, right?
Yeah.
It's very easy to fall into this trap to say that, oh, this is good, this is bad. I should do this, I want to do this. Then it's divorced from perhaps reality, you know. Our job is not to say whether this is good or this is bad per se. Our job is to ask ourselves, in this world, whether it's good or bad, how are we going to make a living, right? Instead of saying that I want this and I just want to do this.
I hear you. I think opposition is also trying to achieve that. But I feel like at fundamental level, is there a political system that actually supports this? Because every political party is self-preserving to a certain extent, just like now PAP is still pulling votes. So at some point, it's very difficult to, they say something, you know, opposition say something, and then you all say, no, go ahead, and then like, oh yeah, you're right. They would never do that. Neither will we be able to often see opposition putting out a good idea, and then PAP be like, actually not bad, let's work together on that. Like we don't see that due to the nature of the fundamentals of
this
politics.
Is actually the fundamental issue. Actually, how do we keep our system distinguished and exceptional compared to other people? In fact, what you have just described is what is happening in history across many countries. Just because you are from a different party, right? Everything I say, I must disagree with you for the sake of disagreeing. Then it's not helping to move forward, right? Right, you have a thesis, someone have a antithesis, then can we find a synthesis to move to the next level? Like, that is in service of our country, right?
Can I put you on the spot actually for real? Because on this topic about ideas and stuff, right? For me and like the streets that I walk on, the perception is that when opposition comes up with a policy or an amendment or whatever it is, the first reaction of the PAP is not to seek the good part of it to take out and help and put it in, but more to try and poke a hole in that argument.
Oh no,
that's what it feels like.
That's not the way. Because when anybody put up any policy proposal, whether it's from the PAP backbenchers or from the opposition side, actually the front bench has a responsibility to look at it very hard, look at it very critically and ask ourselves, does this work or not? Now, it doesn't mean that all the things that are said by the PAP backbenchers are automatically accepted, no? In fact, the PAP backbenchers also have to debate with the PAP front bench to say that, why is this so, right? I mean, if you look at trade to the healthcare cost structuring or to even the trade policies and things like that. So I think for us, we must hold everybody accountable to the same standard. And we want to keep raising the bar so that we can have proper debate in Parliament whereby the standard of ideas, you know, keep improving in service of Singapore and Singaporeans. Otherwise, if we have double standards, then we just...
I understand, but you know what I mean about the political system is impossible.
Because it's an adversarial nature.
Do you think if you all form government again, right, you will set by example and then you will be the first to say,
let's work with them.
No, I think we have done that in the past before, where if there are good ideas, whether is it from opposition or backbench, we will acknowledge it. Because like we say, right, nobody has a monopoly of good ideas. All we want is good ideas for the country. That's why I thought maybe because of the word opposition,
no, I agree.
It connotes certain things.
Might quite enemy.
Maybe must rename it or something.
No, loyal opposition.
No.
Should be like,
in fact,
B.
No. In fact, I got thing. I say actually, can all of us in Parliament be a good proposition for the country? Don't just oppose for the sake of opposing. Don't draw lines like that. We are all fellow Singaporeans, right? What we want are the best ideas, right? So like, for example, there are some clear OB markers that we all must agree on. So like, for example, foreign policy starts from home, right? Our domestic debates or whatnot must stop at the water's edge because we want the strongest team possible. And we are not about to politicize race and religion. So these are some of the fundamentals I think that we can all agree to. And if we adhere to this, I think we're okay. And if you look at the experience of Mr. Chiam See Tong, Mr. Low Tia Kiang, who has previously served in Parliament, I think they earn the respect of people because they don't say that, okay, it's my idea. No, whatever it is, I must win on this. But they look at things objectively, and they will not politicize things that shouldn't be politicized.
Yeah.
Race, religion, and I think that's the kind of standards that we want to hold ourselves accountable to.
Are you saying that's happening now?
I think we can still do much more. I think we can still do much more. I don't think we are there, and I certainly don't want to see a parliament whereby we go the other way around, whereby people say that, oh, I belong to this camp, I belong to that camp. But actually, every idea, we take it and we examine critically and ask ourselves, is this good for Singaporeans?
Yep.
Then we ask ourselves, after debating, we said, okay, this is perhaps the best idea that we have at this point in time. How can we work together to go and implement this? Now, implementation is also policy. So going back to your idea just now, the GST debate, right? So we debated.
No
okay,
debate lah.
Discussion.
Economics lah, you know.
Economics, okay. So you say like GST, right? So we discussed, we debated in Parliament, and we figure out that, okay, this is about the best way. Then there is another very important part, which is then mobilize fellow Singaporeans to come together and say, let's work towards this. But you can't have things like that. No? You go to Parliament, you debated, and then, okay, everybody kind of agreed, and this is the best idea already. Then you go outside and say that, no, actually, I don't own this solution. I think this is bad. Then you don't have to bring people together, right? I mean, it's like,
understand.
You want to go left, you can go left. You want to go right, you can go left, right. But let's go together, right? Yeah. So I think that's what we hope to do, right? But you cannot just keep tearing and pulling ourselves apart, holding ourselves back just because you belong to a different party, right? Yeah. It's about how we progress the issues together.
Speaking of together.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly that segue. We have a PAP colleague of yours who is now ready to join us. Thank you so much, Alistair.
Yes. Hey, you all didn't give him a chance to speak before you leave.
I adequately warmed the seat.
You'll be here, sir.
Yeah,
where are you going?
Raja is joining.
We're going to change place.
I want it.
Sorry, I take your seat.
We can't have two menu fans too close to each other.
I see.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have with us, he joined us on the first day of stream. Please welcome Minister of Health, Ong Ye Kung. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
When was the last time I was here?
He worked very hard. He rushed from his rally, you know.
Thank you.
Where do you
Thank
come
you so much
from?
for rushing.
I came from a rally.
Okay.
How's it?
Thank you.
Okay, actually we filled up the field. Not bad.
You sound surprised.
No, to be honest, I went to both. I went to the PAP one, the Workers' Party one, and then the PAP one like shit.
Workers' Party one cannot compare, but PAP one these days we have crowd.
People. Okay. Tomorrow.
The other day when I did Sun Plaza, it was quite crowded. So
Sun Plaza always crowded.
No, not the hardcore. Not the hardcore.
I don't know if you missed it, but we told our audience that we'll ask difficult questions. So we're going to jump right into some difficult questions.
Ask him even more difficult questions.
To be very honest,
warm up for him, right?
Yeah, because just now we got one minister, now got two lah.
Okay.
So this one, jumping straight into it. Some people have said that it's okay not to vote for PAP candidates because if the PAP genuinely considers them to be ministerial caliber, right, they will bring them back in safe wards next time. Yourself, for example. So you contested and lost in Aljunied in 2011. And then now, right, all things considered, we have Mr. Pritam Singh as leader of opposition. We have you as a minister. Some people consider it to be a win-win. What's your take on that?
I can't comment about myself. Yeah.
Lucky your colleague.
I can't comment about myself. Yeah. Whether I lost, did the nation lose anything? Not for me to say, you know. For me, it was a very good learning experience. Yeah, you learn not to take yourself too seriously. Take your work seriously. I mean, people decide you lose. What to do? Then you try to improve, you pick yourself up and do something else. But I think the question really is when you lose the first one. Oh, I got a very good analogy. I used it in another podcast the other day.
Please name it. We are ending the bingo already.
No, you will know.
Really. Yeah, really.
So okay. So let's say Liverpool lose Van Dijk. It did
I don't get it.
Right? And you can cope. You can cope. It's a big loss, but you cope, right? Then you lose Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Which they will.
We're gonna lose
and
Trent.
they still kind of cope. Then you lose somebody else. You still kind of cope. Then you lose Salah.
Oh.
There must come a point where each loss is more and more painful.
Right.
And there will come a point when the loss result in a system breakdown that you cannot play the game you want to play. Then Stoke will be very upset, right? Yeah.
But we lose
I gave this...
Curtis Jones.
I'm lost.
I was going to say, I gave this analogy in another podcast, and the guy next to me said, "Who are all these people?"
I know Saleh.
Salah. Anyway, important.
But it's true, right? Actually, every team is trying to strengthen their team. There's no such thing as just because I win the Premier League and then therefore I'm not going to strengthen the team. Because actually the real competition is not just the Premier League, right?
Yeah.
They are going for the UEFA Cup and so forth. And actually for Singapore, it's a bit like that, right? It's not just about the competition within here. We want the strongest team to go and play in the international arena, right?
Yeah. No, I think the point that Mr. Pritam was trying to make was that we didn't actually lose you.
No, then if that's the case, then the argument can also be made to the other side, right? That does it really make a difference?
No, don't use me. I'm sitting here very just saying,
every team is like that, right? So you ask the Workers' Party, you ask the SDP. Does it make a difference if you lose one or two? You can also make that same argument that, then it doesn't matter, then everybody will backfill. But obviously, it's not the same, right?
Right.
If Mr. Loh Tia Kiang is leading the Workers' Party versus Mr. Pritam Singh versus Mr. Faizal Manap,
right.
I think it's a bit different, right?
All I'm saying, the number matters.
Yeah.
You lose one, lose me 5 years, maybe really there's no big deal.
Okay. So
but you start to lose 2, 3, 4, 5, it start to be a big deal, no? I think.
Okay, so we'll come to it because I think the key topic I think that a lot of people are talking about is the placement of DPM gun in Pongol. And I think Mr. Pritam Singh also has come out to say that losing key ministers will not
I know why they keep bringing out other podcasts already, because we keep saying Pritam.
Okay, understand. Totally fair. So we'll just trade. But Mr. Pritam did bring up that like losing key ministers won't weaken the PAP government. And I think he means like one or two, right? Firstly, we have a strong civil service. And I think many people bring up the example of like 2011, we lost a foreign minister, but Singapore's international standing still remains. So then with someone like DPM Gun like being put in Pongol, like do we feel like his statement of losing a key minister not being that significant, does that hold any weight?
I just have two quick. I learned to bring a pen and a paper.
Hey, similar to JianHao, we're just
I find you guys, your questions always
very long.
No, you have like 5 questions packed in one question. And you ask and pretend it's
Very
one
nice
question.
way to say it.
They can be parliamentarian because usually they ask one question, they got 5 supplementary questions.
I have 2 responses.
Just start with Mr. Speaker.
Two responses.
Yes, sir.
I think losing George Yeo was painful. But we managed to cope.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, would the team and would the cabinet be better with him? Definitely yes.
Right.
So it was a loss. It's like losing Van Dijk.
Yeah.
Second is, of course, Pritam will say all this. He doesn't run the PAP, he runs the WP. So of course he will say that. Yeah. But for us who have to run the PAP, losing a teammate is painful, you know.
It's painful, especially a teammate like George, who has many years of experience. You know, when they go into international conferences, the kind of networks that they have built up, the kind of authority that they have. I just want to share a personal story, you know. I took over from Mr. Lim Hang Kiang. He was 14 years trade minister. Yeah. When I first took over from him, and I have to go and chair these ASEAN meetings, right, for the trade ministers, right?
Yeah.
Then it's like, actually, our system, fortunate for me, I was able to have him by my side as an advisor. Because the networks that he brought, the kind of authority that he has, the depth of knowledge he has, it's not something that I can just overnight jump into it, right? So, you know, even when a minister retires, very senior ministers, senior members of the cabinet retire, like Mr. Teo Chee Hian, all that, we actually lose a depth of knowledge, and we have to quickly find ways to go and imbue a next generation to try and do that. And that cycle keeps continuing.
Then the obvious question would be, if DPM Gun was such an asset and important to PAP, right, why did we switch him over to Pongol?
Well, I think the PM has explained this, right? You see, if you look at the PAP slate, we want to make sure that we serve the entire Singapore.
Yep.
And we want to make sure that the senior leaders of the PAP are also distributed across Singapore, right? It cannot be end up in Singapore whereby one day, it's so lopsided, right? So we have to do some of these things in order to make sure that different parts of Singapore also get well taken care of.
Right. So the reason being because the anchor minister is retiring.
Well, you see that actually Senior Minister Teo Chee Hean, he has been a pillar in both the security realm for so many years, right? Yeah. And he has also taken care of the residents down there. And we must make sure that our slate, our portfolio is distributed, I won't say evenly, cannot be evenly, but to the extent possible to take care of different parts of Singapore.
Do you all think Worker Party Pongol is putting up a good fight?
Well, to us, everyone is
challenge,
a tough fight.
Well, I think it's a tight.
Yeah, it's a tight fight.
I scared I stay in Pongol.
You stay in Pongol.
Yeah,
so please vote correctly. So then you won't be so scared, right?
We shall not campaign on this.
That's the whole point.
No, campaign you.
No need. I am very clear. I never pretend who I vote. The chat knows.
Is there a reason why it was DPM Gan as opposed to any of the other ministers who also maybe in the area or nearby? Why? Any specific reason why it was just him who was put out to Pongol to?
No, I mean,
I suppose it could have been anyone.
Could have been anyone.
This is how the chips have fell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of which, I think like some opposition, I don't want to name really, but like some opposition parties have mentioned that I think the whole narrative that you have to vote for PAP so that we don't lose ministers, they describe it as fear mongering. Do you think that's fair?
Fear mongering. How does that work? I think it's not fear mongering. It's just explaining the consequences that ultimately a cabinet need to have enough ministers. Right. We have 22 ministers.
Less than that.
Now
with the retirement.
Yeah. Imagine in the UK you got 600 in the House of Commons, and I think they have 22 ministers.
Yeah.
We have 97 seats this round, and we have 16 ministers. Yeah, so that's what we're choosing from. Everyone you lose is a big blow, Yeah, your bench is just like that,
Yeah, fighting the comment section now.
No, I do want to say on topic of the fear mongering, all that, I'm a common person. To me, what I see is you guys talking, opposition talking. There's like a lot, and then I'm just taking from it what I can. So to me, when I see the Prime Minister say, we can't afford to lose someone like this, very important person, minister, so much experience, all this. To me, that is like, okay, if we lose him, you're losing all of these things. That is incentivizing me to be scared of losing that person. To me, that is the mongering of the fear. So that's how I'm seeing it. And
so on the other hand, the opposition say, if you lose me, then there's no voice in parliament. Then the PAP will be so domineering. There's no checks and balance. Yeah. That's fear mongering, right? So I wouldn't put this so emotively. It's just there's pros and cons on both sides. Yeah, voters have to look at it and decide. That's what democracy is about, right? Put forward to you pros and cons.
Actually, it applies to both sides, right?
Yeah,
it applies to both sides. I'm sure the other side won't say that if I lose my leader or I lose my number two, it doesn't make a difference.
Right. Yeah.
I know nobody will make that argument, right?
Yeah. No, I've heard the other side also say we can get wiped out, and then there's none of us.
So I
agree. I never say only you. I never say. I say I hear all of this.
I never say you say. I say.
You get the hands out of it.
No, but speaking of that check and balance like narrative, right? I think a lot of people are buying into it because I think like WP even said they're not competing enough to like actually take over like 1/3 of the seats, and so it seems like an attractive thing because you have more voices in parliament without like while still allowing PAP to still run the country essentially. So like do you feel that more needs to be done for PAP to show that they're actually listening to the ground or that their views are being represented? Do you feel like anything needs to change in that regard?
I think we are making a great effort.
Yeah.
The problem with listening to the ground is after you listen, then you try to say, this guy had a really good suggestion, let's do this. But whatever he suggests doesn't benefit you, or may even hurt you. Then you will say we didn't listen to you. So once you govern, you realize that you have so many segments with trade-offs. So it is a tough act.
How much?
But sorry.
How much of what the opposition is saying is performative in your eyes?
In Parliament? In Parliament?
Anywhere or in the rallies right now, because over the last few days.
Rallies are rallies. Rallies by nature are performative.
Okay. But
whichever political. Yeah. In Parliament, I would say there's a range.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes there are ideas that actually there are many ideas we take it very seriously. I give you most recent example. There was a PQ that say from an opposition member, I don't name lah, so that don't promote her.
After election.
Because the question is, if the baby is born and is Singaporean, why can't they get subsidy in a government hospital? Yeah. So our policy is, if the mother is a resident, long-term pass holder, the children is a Singaporean, then you get subsidy. So the question was put to us. So I thought about it. Actually, it does make sense. I'm going to look at it. Yeah. So, and there are many examples. Some from opposition, some from our own MPs. You got to take those in, but it takes some time. But back to your question, because now I write down.
Sorry.
Your question was about the number of opposition. Yeah. I think there's a difference. When I first lost, in the first batch of WPMPs enter Parliament, I think there are no regrets, in terms of Aljunied residents. You put the vote to them again, likely we will lose again, because people really want the presence of the opposition. So at that time, there was a nice analogy they put out. They say we are co-driver. You are driving what? PAP is driving. And I'm just co-driver. In case you fall asleep, I smack your head and you.
I actually have this quote. So in 2011, Mr. Lau Tia Kiang described the Workers' Party as a co-driver, a check on the government in case the driver drive off course or fall asleep.
That was compelling.
So that was 2011.
I would say the Singaporeans agree that it's very hard to argue against it.
Yeah.
Because
what does one do when you also agree with that? Then do you all say, I don't feel Aljunied law? I agree with you. I show you I agree with you. I don't feel Aljunied.
No lah. In the election, you still got to fight lah.
Yeah.
You cannot do that.
Point
That's
is,
not the PAP way.
You still got to fight lah.
But you must finish. Let him finish the story.
But then when you expand further, then your co-driver is not just a co-driver. No, co-driver also take on, say, backseat driver already.
Yeah.
I start giving you instruction. Hey, you take this route lah, take that route lah. Drive faster, slower. Policeman here. But the driver, you can still take in all these inputs. You still got a GPS. It's okay. I'm still in charge. But there will come a point when the co-driver is not go beyond that. He has one hand on your steering wheel, and say, I also want to drive. That's when things get dangerous. You can crash, and then the co-driver say, actually, I'm not the driver. If it crashes, it's your responsibility. When will we reach that point? I don't know. I fear one day we reach that point. Then we will be uncoordinated. Then Singapore will not just be small. Singapore will be slow. Singapore will be indecisive.
Right.
That's my big worry.
So since 2011,
yeah,
sorry,
2011.
what does my note say?
Yeah. So they won Aljunied in 2011.
Okay, you go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
So they won Aljunied in 2011 and then Sengkang in 2020. So increasingly there is more opposition presence in Parliament now.
Yeah.
My question is, has the job changed as a result? Like, what changed in terms of governing Singapore now that
I have a view.
you are still government, but less.
You start first.
This reminds me of COVID.
Okay.
It does change the work. It does change. The check and balance does change your behavior. We had this conversation earlier. Yeah, you don't have to topple, you don't have to veto, but the fact that there's contestability, someone is there to voice out to say, no, I disagree. I speak for a certain segment, I disagree. You're a lot more careful. You take in a lot more views. You'll be putting up a statement, a motion, or a bill, and you'll be saying, what will the opposition say? What would be their perspective? And you try to take that in, you see. So to me, it does change the way we make policy.
That sounds like a net good for Singapore. Is that correct?
I don't disagree. I always say what works best for Singapore is an equilibrium where you have a strong government, a ruling party that can be decisive, can be fast, and a loyal opposition that provide check and balance. I think that would be ideal. What is the equilibrium? I don't know, but I do know the last term, I thought not so bad. I thought not so bad. Things work. We are careful. Opposition will push back, sometimes quite fiercely, and then when they push back, sometimes there is public resonance. So it cannot fly even if you have the numbers.
Right.
Yeah. Then it comes to a crisis, they never obstruct. They even support vaccination. They speak up, which I appreciate. So to me, the last configuration.
Polling 2 days to polling day is very surprising to me. But I respect that.
I always say that.
Okay, fair enough.
Last time not polling, we're not polling.
No, there is no. That's why there's no chance of an opposition wipeout. It's not what Singaporeans want.
There's no chance, or that's
There
not
is
what we
no
want?
chance of a Singapore.
I see it as like I also scared I got wiped out. That's
No,
why.
I don't think there is any chance of a wipeout. It's not what Singaporeans want. It will be against the will of Singaporeans. I don't believe. This coming from someone who lost in Aljunied.
Yeah.
And I could see it. People want me to lose.
Like you felt it on the ground when you were.
Yes, people want me to lose. There's nothing I can do.
So do you
People just
send
want-
encouragement to your Aljunied team now?
Oh,
And the Tampines Pongol team that are facing very fierce competition?
I always have a soft spot for the Aljunied candidates. So I did an intro video with them.
Oh, yes, I saw.
You saw. So you go a little bit viral.
I follow you after you come last week.
Earlier we spoke a little bit about ideas, right? And I just want to ask you, because, especially as your remit as Minister of Health, we've heard Professor Paul Tambia do a lot of, speeches and share a lot of his policies. Is there anything that he said so far in his rallies and in his manifesto that you think is a good idea for the Ministry of Health to consider?
I must say, in a rally, back to your point, is it performative? Yeah, I think it's a bit general.
Yeah.
It's a bit general to generate light and deeper discussion. I've been trying to, but it's so difficult.
You've been trying to with him?
I'm trying to address, because he says single payer system. I say, okay, single payer means...
What does it mean? Right.
Yeah, because we now pay by subsidy. It's damn boring if I want to explain.
You brought it up just now, that's why.
Yeah.
You know,
Economics in this.
it means you pay by subsidy, insurance, and Medisave. Today we have 3 legs to the stool. Single payer means you get rid of 2.
Yeah.
So to me, it's which 2? But I think I got his answer. He will just use insurance. And that begs so many questions. Imagine no subsidy.
Yeah.
Everything covered by insurance. What kind of insurance is this, What is the premium? Premium must be very high. It's a bit like the US system, you see. Yeah, where you really pay very high premiums, but if you don't have insurance, you go to a hospital, you get turned away. Yeah. So what do they do? Obama voted in Medicaid, Medicare, which basically is a subsidy system. So at the end of the day, you still go back to your 3-legged stool.
I want to bring back to my earlier question. Don't you see you're having to fight this fight every single election because of the nature of politics? In that it's like you said, it's
adversarial.
It's adversarial. It's opponent driven. I've never seen opposition come out with something and y'all say good idea. Neither have they said good idea to yours. And so as long as y'all continue to be in power, they will always be able to say, look, you are poor, things are expensive, vote me in, I can represent your views. And they are right, they most certainly can, and they will always be able to keep to their promises. And every 5 years, y'all are left to fight this battle. Like, don't you all think the political system should change so that it doesn't have to be so...
Sorry, change to what?
Change to
I don't know.
one party system.
But it's I think it's worth discussing what that could be.
You know what I mean, right, Roger?
No, I
I didn't quite get you. What problem are you trying to
You
solve?
see, there is just... Even if you like Dr. Chee Soon Juan's idea, by the nature of politics, and by my personal observation, I have never seen a PAP candidate say, hey, Dr. Chee, good idea. Let's collaborate on this. I've never seen it. Maybe it happens behind closed doors. Neither have I seen the PAP propose something, right? And then opposition say, hey, Ong Ye Kang, good job. I agree with that. Because both parties...
Because politically it's not worth saying that.
Because both parties will weaponize that to earn more votes for the next GE. See, Minister of Health say I did good job. I'm a good, credible party. Join me, vote for me.
I got an answer for you.
Yeah.
You see, human beings living in a society is a complex organism. And how do human beings, each with different needs, live in a society, right? And we fundamentally disagree with each other on a lot of things. So society over many, many years organized itself as a democracy so that you have a civilized way of debating, solving differences, finally putting it to the vote and count heads, and then decide, okay, you win. So it's just the nature of democracy. So your problem, unless you change
a new system. I'll start thinking.
I don't
exist in elsewhere.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to be so pessimistic. Every system has its pros and cons. Whether you have communism, you have democracy. I don't think there's any perfect system that will be able to resolve this dilemma.
Okay.
But I think there are some things that we can aspire to do as fellow Singaporeans. You may be a high bar, but I think we can try. And that is try to be a political leader and not just a politician. Because politician means like what JianHao said, you got a lot of performative things, right? You just want to do things for the sake of getting votes, sound bites, slogans and things like that. But a political leader is, when you come to the crunch, you really think what is best for your people. And then you help to unite people and take people forward. I think that's important. And that's actually how we kept our system exceptional. I won't say that just because we have a system, then the system will just naturally run. That's just not what you all say. Actually, every generation, regardless of communism or democracy, you need people with the right values. I mean, you look at around the world, there are democracies that didn't work. And there are still many democracies that don't work now, right? Not because they don't have contestation. In fact, it could be the other way around. They could have too much contestation and a lot of heat but no light.
Yeah.
Right? But you have also seen other systems that are perhaps, they won't call democracy, they may call them authoritarian, and sometimes it works for a while. And to me, what's the so-called uniting factor between these two? It's actually the quality of the people. The quality of the people who are prepared and can be attracted to come into political service. And to me, that is the crux. In some countries where they slug it out, right? Then the best and most committed people don't want to serve in political service. They just say that I'm going to make my money either in the tech world, in the finance world, but I'm not going to serve. And then over time, the country will degenerate because the best people don't want to serve anymore. So to me, whether we can break that dilemma actually depends on our ability to inspire the best people to come and serve with the right values. But if we only inspire people who come for the sake of power, then I think we will
but
be
we'll never know because no one will say that.
Yeah, but you can see.
Right.
Over time, you can see. You can see in many countries, right? Do people do things because they really believe that that is good for the country and people? Or they just do things because they think that it's going to get me a political advantage?
Right. Sorry, I'm mindful of time. I'm going to move on to the next question. I think I got your point, right? And this one, I'm going to put you on the spot again. So I think Min Ong, right? I think Min Ong is the one that said it. So
we can label it more generally.
So you label no lah, let's go lah, ho.
Yeah.
I think you labeled SDP's proposals as populist. I think that is the uphill climb of the incumbent. The burden and the privilege to get to actually execute government, right? At the same time, the PAP government says it takes a consultative approach. So you have platforms like ForSG, Reach and SGPO. So how do you differentiate this approach?
Very different.
Differently from...
Very different. You always need to be consultative. So in our case, I think we make consultation part and parcel of our governance approach.
Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, you are doing things that people are not even talking about. Yeah. Populist, there may be a proper definition somewhere. To me, it means you are just trying to be popular. You are putting out money that you cannot pay for. Yeah, I think that crosses the line into being populist.
So saying that they're saying nice things, but not necessarily figuring out how to execute
or even doing things because they are populist government. They are the Western liberal populist government. They splash out subsidy handouts that actually they can't afford. And in an Asian context, can't afford means you're already in debt. So most of Western countries are in debt, right?
The way I put it is this. There's a difference, but you must do both. Between being responsive and being responsible. Every government needs to be responsive to the needs of its people. Like, for example, now we are facing inflation, cost of living pressures. You must respond to the people's needs and try to help our people. And that's what we've been trying to do. But at the same time, you must be responsible. You cannot go and empty out the kitty just to say, I meet today's needs, right? And if you get that balance wrong, right, then I think it will make for a good government for the long term.
So it's clear to me when a party put forward to say, I'm going to increase funding for this, subsidy for that, and at the same time cut GST. I think that's unsustainable. The numbers don't add up.
It's not logical.
It becomes populist in my view.
Yeah.
Right.
In my view. Yeah. But if you say, as a result, I'm raising GST further, okay, I respect that. Yeah.
But on the point about consultation, right, we are becoming more consultative. But actually, Vivian taught me one lesson. The first day...
Vivian is in MFA.
Vivian Balakrishnan.
Okay.
Because I took over him from the Ministry of then the MCYS. Right? He taught me one thing. He says that, Chun Sing, you must go and consult widely. They say, oh, of course, we all learn that. We must go and consult widely. Then you say, but your problem doesn't stop there. After you have consulted, you must go and explain to everyone why you didn't accept their idea. So if you have consulted 100 people, and then you accepted one idea, you better go and explain to the other 99 why you didn't accept their idea. So it goes back to where Ikang left off just now. It's not just about consulting, and then everybody giving their ideas. Because it's not just about government hearing people's voices. It's also our fellow Singaporeans hearing each other's voices and understand that actually every problem, every issue that we're confronted with, there are many perspectives. And it's not government versus people.
And if you make this guy happy but don't make that guy happy, that guy will run to your political party and then we will be contesting. There's no way we'll agree each other. Whatever you say, I disagree and vice versa. And then we go to the vote and that's democracy.
So I think we have to...
But all the systems suck and liberal democracy sucks the least.
Who was it? Was it Winston? Was it Winston Churchill?
Someone said democracy is the worst form of government
after
except
you try
for
everything
all
else.
the others that you have tried.
It's just the way. But I think we are at on that sober note.
Very sobering note.
We are actually in a very self-reflective mode. I think, although there's a lot of fire on the internet, actually I think the nation is going through a very reflective.
I agree.
Yeah? You think so? Huh?
Yeah.
We're actually thinking about what is democracy to us.
Yeah.
We already established there's no such thing as no opposition. There will be. But to what extent? But yet we are so small. We need to be fast. We need to be decisive. Don't be small and slow. At least be small and decisive.
It's how to be small and exceptional.
And what is that equilibrium that makes us exceptional still?
It's about being exceptional, right? Because if we just follow other people's system, then we'll get other people's results, right?
So it must mean, like Chun Sing say, it must mean bring in good people, all sides, all sides. Our side, opposition
and that means
side.
the same standards.
And
not lower the
voters
standards.
must start to demand that. Right? Voters always demand PAP standard must be
Which
damn
is
high.
good.
You got any problem, you are dead. And then what about opposition? What is the standard you require when we accept that it is part and parcel of our government system from now on?
Actually, I have a question. How do the opposition find people?
Oh, you asked me. I think you asked me. You can do any other episode, right? You can ask them direct.
You put me on the spot.
Maybe I'll ask how the PAP find people as well.
For PAP, you go through different sectors. You look at who are the people who have done well and earned the respect of the people in that sector. And then that is the first way that you can find good people. Because it's not about whether I think you are good or not. It's also whether you can command the respect and the confidence of the people whom you have worked with, right? And it's not just a superficial thing, because I think the people who have worked closest with you over many years, they will probably be the best one to give you a sense of what that person is. It's not whether that person is a tough taskmaster or not. It's whether that person genuinely cares for people, that person genuinely is working for the bigger good rather than just for himself or herself.
Right.
Is that the main quality that you're looking for?
Yes, we want to make sure that people who step forward, they are doing it not just for themselves. We always say this, you can be ambitious, but please be ambitious for the country rather than be ambitious for yourself.
Right.
Because otherwise then we have many ambitious individuals. That doesn't form a team, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's being ambitious for the country.
Sounds like a football team, I know.
Yeah.
Struggling.
Don't lose me again.
Shots fired.
I'm a fan.
We have a lot of people asking this same question over and over again. And to be very honest, I want to admit, I did attempt to ignore this because once again, these are structural issues. But I think it appeared too many times already. Can I invite you all to explain the role of mayor?
Sorry, the role of mayor.
The role of mayor.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
I feel like the law.
He's warming up, but he's going to take a as a minister in charge of public service.
So we have 90 over divisions, right?
Sorry, what's division? As in why?
Electoral divisions.
Okay.
Right? So you have national policies at the highest level. But you know that there's no one policy that can fit everything, right?
As we just learned,
right? And we say, that's why some people say, do they fall through the cracks and whatnot? That's why the term came about, right? Then you know that, then how to solve this problem? But you also cannot have policies that cater to each and every individual, right? What we call just now teaching to the average or catering to the average, right? So while you have national policies that provide, a strong foundation, a baseline, then on top of that, you layer on certain things to give the resources to different divisions, different clusters of divisions for them to do something more. So like, for example...
Is that not what MSF does?
No, MSF is what the government does, which is the baseline.
Okay, sorry.
Right? The baseline layer. Then you imagine like a cake like that, right? You have the base layer, okay? Then you have different sectors with slightly different needs. Maybe some sectors want to champion a bit more on the environmental issues. Some sectors have a few more poorer people, and then they want to do a bit more for the poorer people. Some people have a bit more children from dysfunctional family, they want to do more. So you allow them some resources to cater to the unique needs of these sectors within the area. So you build upon it. Then you have another layer which now come to the local division, the 90 over divisions that we talk about, 97 to come after the election, right? And then they have also their local schemes that will really cater to this kind of needs. So it's just different layers of help and schemes to cater to different groups of people. You can't have a one-size-fits-all. You can't have a 97 all running disparate thing. Certain things you run at the national level, certain things you run at the local level, 97, and certain things you run somewhere in between at the cluster level where you have economies of scale. So one very good example in central CDC. Denise came up with this idea that she wanted to start a program for coding for kids from...
Denise is one of the mayors.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Denise wanted to start a program for coding for less privileged kids during the school holidays. Now, each of us also wanted to do that. But in each of our division, the numbers are very small. We don't have critical mass. But if we work together, it's a few divisions, and then she will help to coordinate. Then we have a program for that layer. Now, it's too difficult for us to have a local program. It's too much to ask for a national program as well.
Right.
And this is a very simple example of how you fit into somewhere in between to cater to the unique needs. And other people in different districts, whether is it Northwest, Southwest, they will also have their own unique programs to cater to their own unique needs.
Right. And does PA not cover that? Sorry, last one on this thing. Does PA not overlap here?
Okay, so the PA covers all the different divisions, right? The CDC, the mayors are also part of this PA structure. So you see, even within the PA, there is a layer where you cover each of the 97. Then there is a layer whereby you cover a clusters.
Okay, I follow. You understand or not? Let's not take up too much time on this one. Structural problem.
When it's too small, sometimes not enough numbers. But when it's too big, it's too big. So you need somewhere in between.
Yeah, so you got different sizes for different needs.
Okay. I do want to switch gears because it's not often that we get 2 minutes. I think this is the first time we actually have 2 ministers on the show itself. So I did want to ask slightly broader question. Something that came to mind is that actually during election season, the job of a minister actually doesn't stop. You guys are both campaigning and still working as your ministers.
Yeah, so one of you all say they are not minister, why we call them min, right? They actually still are. Yes, only MPs step down. Ministers keep their job.
Actually,
for now.
We are there until the next cabinet gets sworn in. Otherwise, literally cannot be the government. We got no government, right?
That's why your perm sex time.
No, because you have statutory duties. Right? No, seriously, let's say like now if something happens as a security incident, you cannot have no minister for defense.
This whole thing that somehow civil servants take over, it doesn't work. Now, just now it was in one of your questions, it doesn't work now. Because I was a civil servant before, and then I became a minister. The two jobs are very different. Civil servant job is to maintain and do Kaizen.
What's that? Sorry.
Keep improving.
Efficiency and all that. No, that's the job of the civil servant. He safeguard, he jaga the institution. The minister is the one, you go for election, you got a mandate. You have a mandate, you can change things.
Right.
I really felt it. When I got a mandate, I went to the ministry, I say, I want to change something. If the civil servants disagree with me, you say, who has the mandate? I have a mandate, so I can change things.
Right.
So it's very different,
But then you
cannot leave a country to be run by civil servants, as good as they are.
The 5 years term, every day we change something for 5 years.
So that's one of the unique strengths of our system. Why people put their money here, why people trust us. Because actually that stability is a premium. When I was MTI ministers, right? When my EDB officers knock on the doors of all these companies, whether local or overseas, and say, hey, please put your investment here. Then they'll ask you, how long is your policy going to be around? Because I'm not going to make a return based on 1-2 years. I'm not making like last time maybe I make a textile factory, the returns are faster. Now if I invest in semicon or I invest in a petrochem, it takes them 10-15 years to make a return. So they want to have certain confidence. And one of our strengths as a small country where we can't offer people cheaper manpower, cheaper land, is to offer them this continuity and consistency. So people know that they can trust us.
Just now you had a question and I interrupted you. Better ask your question.
No, not at all. I just want to say that because we have two ministers here. I think yesterday Trump just had his 100 days of presidency. I do want to get your thoughts on like what is Singapore's hope in this trade war? Like,
what's best case scenario for Singapore now?
Well, we are not here to pass judgment on other people's
But you don't feel
administration.
Mongol also.
Okay? All we want to know is, all we want to do is, number one, if the whole landscape change, we want to ask ourselves, how can we build those new partnerships to make sure that we can still earn our keep? Even if the supply chain get reconfigured, the investments shift, we want to have a fair share of the investments and the opportunities. So now, that's why Kim Yong, Vivian, Sealing, who was in MFA, MTI, they are constantly looking out for opportunities and quietly behind the scene, they're going to work with different partners. Not just countries, but also big companies that want to promote trade and want to have a more integrated world. So this is the first thing we want to do. The second thing that I think we want to do is to make sure that in this fluid situation where there might be other follow-on issues, when the system breaks down, where security may be an issue, to start start thinking about, okay, what are all the contingencies that we need to think about? How do we put in place systems? Then the third thing that we want to do is how to mobilize Singaporeans together and say that, okay, we can do this together. And it's not a slogan. Because when we are calm, when our people are united, people will find it harder to pick us apart. Now, let's say I'm going to negotiate a deal with somebody else. When you negotiate with somebody, right, you want to know how far you can push, right? But if you know that that person is solidly backed by his people, you will know that it's not so easy to be pushed over.
Right.
But if I know that somehow you are always quarreling within your country, just as some other countries, then I know actually I can push you, right?
To directly answer your question, I think there's a cone of uncertainty going forward. I'll try to describe what I think are at each of the extreme of the cone. For a very good scenario, which is somehow within this 90 days, the Trump administration could negotiate, or it may spill over beyond 90. He managed to negotiate with the large majority of countries around the world, and then he bring down the tariff, the reciprocal tariff, to 10%, which is his minimum.
Quite tough.
Yeah. But
that is tough. I thought that's like
Is there any charges?
I'm just painting the optimistic extreme.
The bookends. The bookends.
But you still have 10% and you still have very high tariff between China and US. And that will affect the rest of the world. That one's not going to come down. Yeah, so far. So that's one end of the best scenario.
The best scenario.
That's the best scenario. The worst scenario with the other end is other countries start to follow the US in doing reciprocal tariff. And when that happens, the entire WTO system is unraveled. Yeah, we will be in trouble because we are so small. We don't have the bargaining power. Today, the WTO system works such that whatever you offer one country, you offer to the rest. Yeah, they call it MFN.
Most favored nation.
Most favored nation. Whatever I offer you, I must offer everybody. Yeah. But once the US reciprocal tariff, the big problem is I am dealing with each of you differently. Whatever I impose on you, I'm not imposing on you. I have a separate deal with you. If other countries start to follow, the system unravel. Singapore is on our own to negotiate the best deal with every country. And we are so small, it's going to be tough. So I think that, to me, is the extreme ends.
Actually, I think I got something more.
Sorry,
extreme.
one is the... Okay, one is best, one is worst. Okay.
No, it's not best or worst. You can even be more extreme because the cone of uncertainty is not what tariff you get slapped with. It's whether that whatever you get slapped with today, will it change tomorrow? And if you can keep changing, then how are we going to make decisions? Then the other thing that, to build on what Yikang say, if I cannot trust you to obey the rules, or I don't have a body that can adjudicate a dispute, which is like what's happening in the WTO now. You bring a dispute to the WTO, there's no appellate body that can pass a judgment and enforce the judgment. Then what's going to do? Everybody will take things into their own hands, Then everybody will keep asking this question, even if I sign something with you, why should I continue honoring what we sign? Until and unless every day you give me something meaningful, a value proposition, something relevant that says that I should continue this deal. Now that is quite scary because in the world of business, it's very hard to make investment decisions like that. And it's not just about us, no. It's about everybody else. And if everybody else finds it hard to make investment decisions, then the number of jobs are going to come down, the wage growth is going to come down, and then we are in a very difficult situation. Very difficult situation.
No, I just have one address to the chat. Leisure, you copy and paste your question multiple times about why choose to give CDC vouchers instead of lowering GST on essential goods. Scroll back the video, okay? This video, it will be posted after the stream. Watch it again. It was explained very well at the start.
Yep.
Okay.
I think just as we have you, I think we have heard a couple of narratives, right? So from WP, I think we've seen the repeat of the don't give PAP a blank check. And I think PM Wong has come out to say, don't give opposition a free pass. And I think we've heard a lot of things. We've heard of also like foreign interference. We've heard about race and religion politics. As Singaporeans head to the ballot boxes on Saturday, what do you want them to keep in mind?
I go first.
Okay.
As I mentioned, I think we should be in a reflective mode. We're at that point in our journey where we are deciding and thinking about what should democracy mean for Singapore. I think we can establish opposition presence in parliament is a given. But at some point, you're going to have one hand on your steering wheel. It's not going to be safe. What is that point? Losing 3-4 ministers, would it tip over to that point? Yeah, and I think we should think about that. Because once you tip over, I think we go down a path that is going to present great challenge given the environment that we are going to end in with the extreme that I painted. And at the same time, the point that we have no blank check, opposition have no free pass, I think is a good way to frame it. Yeah,
same standard. Same high standards.
There will be standards.
Yeah, there will be standards.
I actually have a view that actually we should accept that the standards on the ruling party is always higher.
It's always higher. The incumbent is always higher.
There will be double standard.
And actually, we are quite proud as a badge of honor to say that people hold us to a higher standard.
Because the incumbent who has to govern is held to a higher standard than the opposition whose role is check and balance. But notwithstanding, I think.
But we should not let the standard keep dropping.
But voters during cooling off day probably want to think about what are the standards expected of PAP, which you always held in very high, versus also opposition. Standards that I think actually voters know. You must be at least a decent person, because the non-decent ones always never get elected. So a decent, good qualification. Number 2, you must show capability to run a town council. Number 3, you must have the ability to put together a set of coherent policy that is sustainable, that makes sense, then you can explain to people. Number 4, most importantly, integrity, honesty, character must be there. So these are some of the things that voters may want to think about as we head into last day and then cooling off day.
So my take is quite similar to Ikang. I think first, people will look at the candidates individually. Don't pigeonhole them into any category based on their background or based on their political affiliation. Look at the individual and ask, why is this individual stepping forward to serve? What can this individual, as part of the team, contribute? And I think we should respect fellow Singaporeans by moving beyond slogans. Present to fellow Singaporeans, these are my plans and these are what I will do. But I think we have reached a stage of political development. We cannot keep saying that, vote me in, I will get them to do. Because one day, what if you are the one having to do it? It's only responsible for you to say, this is what I will do and this is my plan. And then let Singaporeans, fellow Singaporeans, assess whether it's a workable plan or not workable plan. And are these the people that will take care of the constituency and residents well? Are these people that will represent us well in parliament? Are these people that will fly our flag high on the international stage? Because after the results are out, our competition is not internal. Our real competition is whether we have the best team in parliament that can fly our flag high, because everybody else will be watching us and say that, should I deal with Singapore seriously? Do they have serious-minded people who debate seriously in parliament, come up with good ideas, or are they, maybe like what JianHao said, just in the performative mode? Then I think we do ourselves a disservice.
So we're nearly out of time, right? I think. Yeah. So I think I have one more question, because this is something I asked Workers' Party candidates who were here yesterday, and I want to pose you the same question. And I think we can all foster a little bit of our positivity. What is something that you guys admire from the Workers' Party?
We asked them the exact same question.
Okay.
So what was your answer?
You give me yours and then I'll tell you what they say.
Their rallies are massive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything?
No.
I mean, no. You asked me, I give you an answer, you say no. You are being performative.
You give an answer. Anything from you, Minister?
Well, I think there are some aspects of their communication which I think we can take a leaf from. Yeah.
I agree. I agree. I feel like you are not communicating on even ground. That is the problem, right?
No, okay, partly
I think they landed very nicely on we don't want to govern, we are just here to check the government, and they can sit down there and they are absolutely right.
Okay, but that is a difference in expectations. But what if they are governing, right? I mean, we should be...
But they don't want, and they made it very clear.
No, I think at this stage of our political development, I think it's not very correct nor responsible for us to say that, because when we go into a political contest and you say that these are my plans, you must really be prepared that if you are elected,
you must make the plan happen.
You must make it happen, because there's no one else to make it happen for you, because there's no one else to make it happen for us. So I think why I say that is because sometimes we also admit, because policies are not easy to explain, right? And depending on your audience, people react to different explanations differently. So we try our best to try and explain things simply, but I think we can still explain simpler, and perhaps in some ways that the people will find it easier to understand. But having said that, there's a bit of a risk. I'm quite sure the way I explained just now the GST, why we need the GST increase, is a bit of a simplification. But we hope to get the message across. But if you want to nitpick, then you might say that, no, actually the second decimal point may not be correct, the third derivative may not be correct, and so on and so forth.
But they may not govern, but they may have one hand on the steering wheel.
Yeah. And that is a serious thing that we must...
So what's the answer for what they like about PAP?
They said they admire the PAP's resources. They also come out. They said they admire the PAP's resources. But also, by the way, I think you answered right. But before John jumped in with that, right, why I was going was that you were saying that their messaging in the social media game and all that, the way they get their message out, that is the part that you were talking about, right? The admiration for that.
Not the entire thing.
Okay.
I think only for certain aspects.
Right.
I think maybe because they are not in government, they can simplify it to be, maybe you say
catchier message.
Right? Because we try to cover our bases, because what we say is not only heard by fellow Singaporeans. Actually, what we say as part of the incumbent, as part of the government, is also heard by other people in other countries. Because we cannot go to rallies and say all kinds of things, and then the people watching us, potential partners watching us, are looking like, are you guys serious? No, actually, it's not so funny, because in many other countries, they say all kinds of things during the election campaign, right? Then after that, they tell people, it's okay, say, after that, when we govern, we will take it seriously. You cannot do that, right? I mean, maybe you're a big country, you can do that because people still have to deal with you regardless, right? But nobody's going to do that to us, right? On the basis of some sympathy or charity, right? So actually, whatever we say, we tend to be more cautious, because we are not just addressing fellow Singaporeans. We also have to make sure that we stand up to international scrutiny. So our choice of words, whether is it the tariff, the international situation, we say it very carefully. When PM's his video on the whether there is a tariff and the global situation, it gets viral, people take us seriously. And we feel proud that people take us seriously. But if we are just having slogans, I don't think people look at us with the same kind of respect, right? And then we do ourselves a disservice. So it's quite different. The standards being held to the ruling party and the opposition is quite different.
But do you feel this approach, for example, sort of like gets less hype in a time like this, like on rallies?
No, which is why I think it's good to have a cooling off day, so that everybody, after all the noises, the sound and fury, we sit down and ask ourselves, okay, who is offering what policies? Does it make sense? Can it be executed? Do they have the team who can make it work? These are bread and butter issues, right?
It's a serious question. I think voters can demand.
Yeah.
Voters have agency.
Yes.
Voters want to see an election that is at a different level, over time it will converge to that level.
We will raise the standard.
If voters feel that performatory debates are fun, then that's the level that parties will perform to. Yeah. Ultimately, people's will.
And what happens at the rallies can also happen in Parliament.
Why you laugh at me?
Because
sorry.
No, serious. Because what happens at the rallies can also happen in Parliament. Because in Parliament, if people actually today we have lots of feedback. It's just a live streamer. Even during Parliament, people can start to make comments, right? If people start to raise the bar and say that, hey, come on, man, this is not logical. Although it sounds very nice, but it's not logical. Then I think the political parties will start to say that
adjust accordingly. Yeah,
let's raise the bar. Let's think of a better idea that can solve this problem and not just remain at the level of the slogans and just keep pounding away and talking at cross purpose. Right? So I think that our voters are very wise and they have agency.
All right. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully our live streams have helped you gone beyond slogans. We'd like to thank Min Chan, Min Ong for joining us.
Thank you.
To JianHao. And thank you for joining us for the last 6 days of live streams. Ladies and gentlemen, this was TDK General Election Live Stream 2025. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I want to say, both your t-shirt is a different shade of
I look left, look right, for a career path. I look left, look right, for a career path. I look left, look right, I look left, look right. I look, left, right, left, right. 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 Is this a request considered too high? I look left, look right, for a career path. I look left, look right, for a career path. I look left, look right, I look left, look right. I look, left, right, left, right. 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 Is this a request considered too high? I look left, look right, for a career path. I look left, look right, for a career path. I look left, look right, I look left, look right.